Oh. In episode 3, Mike got the rear IRS suspension pretty much tacked and squared into place. Now we have to build to it. Mike's going to sit down and kind of explain that to you in this clip.
Hey, what's up, guys? Just kind of showing you a little bit of what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about. I'll show you in a second on the other camera, Gib. I picked up this contour gauge. This one's one out of Home Depot, or I guess I shouldn't mention names. It's out of your local hardware store. It's typically used for flooring to cope around trimmed edges and stuff if you have odd copes, because everyone knows walls in your house aren't square. So I use this, pick this up. It's like 10 bucks, super cheap, super easy, because I wanted to cope, make an odd cope like this. Now it's coped differently on both sides to fit into the subframe. Again, I'll show you that. So here's my cope piece. It's going to go right here. I want it to be parallel with the subframe here. Now you see it's raised up a little bit because I got to do some trimming, because you want to make sure I got to trim this here and, you know, obviously a little bit here. But you want to make it to where you can trim some of it. You don't want to be perfect, exact. Well, you do, but you're never really going to do that. So you always cut a little big, a little outside your lines, so it comes out nice. And then here's your result. Now you can see, obviously, you're all focused. This is open here. See, it's open here, which is fine, because I'm going to end up cutting this off. There's a weld here for the subframe. I'm going to cut just on the other side of this, and make sure we keep our lower arm mounts alone so they're welded. So this all this will be trimmed off pretty much from here to here, and I'm going to box that off, and I'm going to box this in. So to be still super rigid, and we're going to have tons of weld on here, tons of strength, and I think it'll turn out fine. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna weld this thing out, at least most of the verticals. Not gonna quite finish welding out the rear. I wanna make sure I get the front end together, but in order to do that, I gotta cut the frame loose. We might have to jog the front end down a little bit. We don't know yet. We kind of did a little bit of guesswork and some math. We're gonna figure that out in a second. Yeah, so I'm gonna weld out all the verticals. I'm gonna attach the body to the new frame, do a hardcore burnout, and then that way we can start knocking away the frame sections underneath the front end, so we can get the front end together, finish tacking that together, and then we're going to I guess finish up the rear. I still gotta put a few braces back here, but I'm not gonna necessarily weld out this section, because this is temporary. I'm not going to weld any of this out. Just the majority of the box of the frame that's going to attach the body to the new frame. Anyway, you got all that? Capiche? At this point, I'm going to keep rolling. I'm going to go up a little higher. I'm going to burn some wire. card. Yeah, so this is a temporary brace we put in here to keep the distance so things wouldn't move. I had to cut that out before I get the inside of those welds. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna shut the camera off and do that, and then I'll be back. Can you hear the Can you hear the welder? It's pretty loud. Yeah. So now I got all the verticals welded out. Like I said, you saw the fast forward footage, I imagine. Now I got to make more jack points because we have a problem. And I'll show you in another clip. But our problem is our floor is now too high to get any sort of jack underneath it. So what my thought is I'm going to measure the distance from the stock frame, basically the bottom distance from the stock frame, and whatever that is, it will be our jack point. So basically we're going to still jack to the same height that we were before because we're now losing 5 inches. So I'm guessing jack plate would be about 5 inches. But I'm going to double check the measurement, make sure, give my grandma a call, make sure she can check it. So yeah, 5-inch block, 2x4. It's going to go right there. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do right now. Carry on. And now the same on the other side.
225,000.
Yay! Welded in.
Nice little 88. Bobby man.
Jack points. Alright. So the new jack points are in. And we put the lift under those jack points. So now we can rip out the floor. Yay! You went in on this?
No.
Alright, they gave me these gusset plates to weld in to make this bar permanent. So I'm going to tack those in and then I'm going to weld this thing out. So I'm going to weld this thing out. We didn't show you putting the whole front end together because the guy at Full Tilt has a bunch of YouTube series on how to do his front ends. And so I suggest if you have any questions about installation, go over there, check him out, Full Tilt Street Rods. But I'm just going to weld this out. I'm not really going to put it on camera. Pretty self-explanatory. Put the squirt gun in the hole and fill it. Roger.
Well, guys, unfortunately, yep, we lost footage yet again where I think I figured out the problem. It was a issue on my end, so my bad, guys. But this is Mike welding out the rest of the Mustang 2 front end, and like you said, go check out Clay, the guy over at Full Tilt Hot Rods. See if he can set you up.
is a little dirty. I've been doing a bunch of cutting and stuff, reworking the front end just because I want to dog it down to the original bumper brackets. We're going to keep the original bumper, so I wanted to move it in that direction to tie it into the original bumper mounts. I'm going to get rid of the cross member. I'll show you that in a second. I just tied that in to square everything off, and now I'm coming down from the original frame, if you can see. So I'm coming down from the original frame, and I took, basically I have a bunch of 2x4. I bought a bunch of 2x4. So I cut this piece at a right angle, I cut this piece to fit here, and this at an angle to match up with the factory piece. Now the front end is more narrow than the rear, or than the basic factory frame. So I had to dog it in 3 inches is what it went. So anyway, so in order for me from the most narrow point to come out those 3 inches per side, so it's 6 inches more narrow, I had to come over. And I can show you that also in a second. But that's what I did. Now I used 3 different pieces attached to the factory frame, the original frame that I had built to tie everything together. And what's going to happen is, I don't know if you can see it, we'll focus on it here. Stand by. Probably can't see it. All right. How's that? You see my red mark? Whoop. I'm looking in the camera trying to figure out where I'm pointing. See my red mark here? That's where I'm gonna end up cutting the frame. So all this is gonna be boxed in. It's gonna be super strong because there's 3 pieces here, and there's no need for 3 pieces. I just didn't want to figure out all the extra math to make all that happen. I could have. I didn't finish college trig. As a matter of fact, I didn't finish college, so that is what it is. But this is an easy and simple way to do that. Now, I'm gonna move the camera. I'm gonna show you what I did on the other side, because this isn't the finished product. What the finished product is more gonna look like. But you see, this is what you call a fish plate. Now remember those 3 pieces I had in there a second ago? I'm using this fish plate to tie it all in. Now here, like I said, this is where it dogs into the factory front bumper mount, if you can see that here, right? So I'm tacked it here, I'm gonna tack it here, I'm gonna heat this up and bang it in so it fits this angle where this came in. So this will be all one solid piece. So we got 3 pieces tied in with another piece. It should be super strong and super stout, and I'm hoping everything works out, because I'm pretty sure it will work out. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now on the front end. We're doing that because I'm expecting a new steering column I ordered from, who did I get it from? Speedway Motors, and it should be here today, tomorrow, and that's the project coming up next. So I want to get the frame done so I can make room for the new steering column, bolt that in, and make all that happen. So that's where we're at next. After this, I'll show you the finished product here in a minute. It'll be a split second for you, but it'll be like probably 3 hours for me, because I got to make all these plates. Anyway, carry on.
Action.
All right, so I'm done putting those gusset plates. As you can see, it's kind of a bit of a shadow, but we put those in only on the inside because these are 1/4 inch thick and it was a bit overkill. So I just ground down the outside of the frame for no reason at all. No need to grind your welds down. Yeah, so the next step after that, we're gonna have to cap these off the top, really just to keep the dirt out. Nothing real structural. See, it's got an open hole. And then we're gonna weld this over the top just to give us a nice clean line. But I'm not worried about that yet, because the next step is steering. These brackets are for the rack and pinion. You got it?
Huh?
So these for rack and pinion. These have to pivot up because they have to meet our new gearbox. This gearbox is from a 98 to 02 Isuzu Trooper, I believe, and it gives us a 90-degree angle to come down from our steering. Right? That light's so fucking. Okay. So our steering column will come down, meet this, and it'll aim at this direction. Our factory or our rack and pinion comes down at an angle. You'll see that once we start mocking this all in. And on top of that, I got a new piece. Now, I was gonna use the factory column, but it was gonna be a bunch of bullshittery. So I spent $97 at Speedway. It's a brand new painted black column. It's got the new bearings both sides, double D on one end that'll fit the coupler for the rack, and it's got a quick disconnect for your standard Grant steering wheel. Right? For $97. Now why would anybody spend more than an hour on a rack or a steering column factory when you can just buy one for $97? So that's the idea. So now we're gonna put it in place. We're gonna make everything work. But I know some of this might have to go. We're gonna have to probably make some other plates to mount all this crap to make it work. So we're gonna stop capping things off for the moment until this is all together. What are you dropping shit for? Camera's rolling.
Shut up, idiot.
God, this guy.
Hi.
All right, so front suspension's essentially all done, and we're concentrating on the rack and pinion. We don't like the angle of the dangle at ride height, so we reassembled, put everything on the front end, the rotors and everything. We're gonna put the tires on here in a second, because we want to make sure at ride height that our rack and pinion arms, our tie rods, are going to be level, because if not, we're going to get massive bump steer, and when we lower the air suspension, it's going to want to toe in quite a bit. So by meeting it halfway, by raising the rack and pinion to be level at ride height, essentially we won't toe in as much. We will a little bit, but it'll probably mitigate most of that. So that's where we're at now. What we did previously, as you see, it's kind of tilted forward. I cut the tacks that came on the kit. They had tacks on the side, cut those, and I tacked some on the top in the position that they were in, and I just leaned it forward to try to get the angle to meet the new gearbox. Now, it'll work if we had a couple of U-joints, but we don't like the angle of the dangle, so that's what we're going to change. That's where we're at now. Put the wheels and tires on, lower the car down, the van down, make sure
It's a van.
it's a van. Make sure our ride height is where it's going to be. We're going to take some measurements, and that's how high we're going to raise the rack and pinion mounts, and essentially probably end up making our own. Anyway, come along with the journeys,
In the stuff.
and the stuffs and the things.
Can't leave you guys alone for 2 minutes. How you doing, Mike?
Huh?
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, great. Just wake me up when it's time to go home.
Will do, bud. Let's go, guys. Come on. Let's leave him alone.
Okay, bye.
Go hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. We'll see you next week.